Here we have some stories that go far beyond trying to explain your mom or dad's laptop to them. Here are some people that probably should know better, or that should definitely know better. What is your "this person has no idea how the real world works" moment? Story 1. The quit his job to become a Twitch streamer kind of relates to my situation, on the opposite side. I've been working my current job for almost 7 years. Got a few yearly raises, then they decided to raise each department up to a base level for those departments and continue to do this each year. So no matter what, I'm always making the same as the new hires in my department and even less than new hires in other departments while getting my hours cut by almost half. Making $15.50 an hour at about 12 to 15 hours per week. I'm on Social Security disability and only qualify because I have Asperger's, but only choose to keep receiving it because I don't make enough money at my job. Because of that disability income, I'm limited on how much I can make in gross wages per month. I have it calculated down to 22 hours per week would keep me under that threshold. Well, like I said, I get almost half that. So I decided to start my own business last year and have slowly been building it up over the last year. I'm to the point where I'm going to start my own online shop. However, I in no way make enough yet to quit my job. Until I can consistently make at least $1,200 per month from my business, after expenses and income tax, which would be more than what I make at my current job, I won't be quitting. That would be the same as just quitting without already having another job guaranteed, which means no money, no food, no car, and nowhere to live. My goal is to get to that point sometime this year where I can afford to quit my job and get off disability payments. So around a $3,000 net income per month at minimum. Can't say for sure if it will happen this year or not, but it's what I'm working toward. I'm 32 and I've only had 2 part-time jobs in my entire work history. There's nothing available in my city that has better pay without some sort of degree, professional licenses, which all take years to get, or extremely physically demanding, which, due to joint pain, I just can't do anymore. So, since I can't find a job to fit my needs, I created one. Definitely not easy, and startup costs outweigh the income so far, but I believe it will work out eventually. In about 5 years, I might even be able to buy a little piece of property or even a house and have a workshop and possibly hire some employees. Still a long way off, though. Might even see some stuff from me on YouTube eventually to promote my business. Not a fan of being on camera, though. Well, that one hits a little close to home for me. Part of it is being on camera for me, even though I have been doing just voiceovers off camera for the longest time. I feel like I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm glad this guy has a realistic view of it. I know you've seen all these TikTok videos of people that are just promoting all these businesses and just sort of giving you this snake oil business plan. They're guaranteeing that it'll work right away. I don't think that's the case. It takes time to build a business. It's marketing. You have to build up your online persona. Anyway, story 2. My friend. She was very spoiled and got everything she wanted. Her father divorced her mother when she was 5 when she started asking for expensive stuff and received them. She never got punished even if it was something really bad. She later got in trouble with the principal. She started crying because she was suspended, since in her household she got everything she wanted. She demanded that she doesn't get suspended. Then she started losing a lot of her friends because she would lie to them, and she always asked them for money, even though she had hundreds of dollars in her wallet. Her brother, who is autistic, is treated like furniture, who is ignored most of the time and gets barely anything my friend has. Her family suffers from financial issues because of her. She has 2 phones. One is an iPhone 11 and another is an iPhone 6. She also has 2 iPads and 2 laptops. Her family went in debt once, and my friend had to sell her old toys. She was crying hysterically, and her parents told her, "It's okay," friend's name, "we will just have to work more." Or what her mom means by "we" is her grandmother and her. They got out of debt, but still suffer from putting food on the table, to network payments, to even going to the supermarket and buying 2 potatoes. She's been begging me and my other friends to give her $10 to $50 when we already made it clear that the money was for colleges and universities. With the money I saved, I have $105, and my friend has around $100, and we do chores to earn money. We had an argument with my friend recently when she brought up I haven't given her a single dollar. I called her a spoiled brat. Then she started to tell her parents, and her parents defended her even though they knew what was going on. A year after that dispute, my parents would take me to Hawaii every summer break, and on my 15th birthday, I could bring a friend anywhere in the world. I brought it up to my friends, and my spoiled friend demanded she went with me since she never goes anywhere. I told her, "No wonder, since you're spoiled." She still demanded she went. I know I won't take her, and I'd take my other friends, and she's more understanding with the answer no. How does this person keep thinking everyone is just going to keep giving her stuff? And she has money of her own. Why is she asking for other people's money? It doesn't make sense. What is she saving that other money for? Is she doing something that is costing her all that much money? Is this something that she's not even telling her parents? Does she just want money? I don't get it. I don't get having money and asking people for more money. Just keep the money you got. What are you spending it on? Story 3. A former friend told my husband and I that he, at the time she, dropped out of college studying and tagging wild wolves, my dream job, because she didn't like writing papers. They were 1 to 2 page reports on each animal captured. In college, I had to write 5 to 7 page papers weekly. I laughed at him. 10 years post-high school, still no job and no relationship, but a botched transition that put his nipples back on the wrong way. He still lives with his dad in a big mansion because his dad is now a widow and doesn't want to be alone. His career choice, which the date is to be determined, clown school. He is thoroughly convinced if he goes to clown school, he'll become a millionaire and can buy a ton of land to start his communist agricultural collective, which he asked if we wanted to be a part of. The rules? All money went to him. No animals or crops that he disapproved of. And only his friends and us are able to work the fields. Basically, he wants to run a cult. Also, monogamous relationships are banned. This was just after he bragged that his trans identity made him immune from the rule that he needed to ask for permission for spicy time since he outranked women in the victimhood hierarchy. And there was a rule that no fences were allowed and no animal training due to it infringing on the freedom of animals. And I told him, predation is a thing. You know that. For which I was told I had no idea what I was talking about. The job we worked at together had me as the head farm animal caretaker. He, when he was a she, was only hanging around watching me do my work and thought for some reason he knew more than I did about animals due to a psychic connection with animals. This person is also a furry. My husband got defensively angry. I looked at this person I had known for over 2 decades in horror, and we fled. So basically, this person is trying to run a real-life MLM, just everything flowing up to them. At least he was honest about what he wanted up front, so they knew right away not to have anything to do with him. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people that will point to this person as the true bad example on some things. I don't think that's the case. I don't think all people who have transitioned or who are furries or anything are going to behave like this person. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Ugh. Story 4. The story about the $40,000 mortgage is normal, actually. Well, not the part about only thinking it takes 3 years to pay off, just the amount in general. I come from Missouri, and growing up, that was the exact same mortgage my parents had for 3.5 acres of land and a nice double-wide. My mom eventually moved to the big town nearby and got a 3-bedroom house with a garage there on half an acre, and it sold for $38,000. But she did have to spend $20,000 in repairs, so she ended up with a $30,000 mortgage on it, because she paid part in cash from sale of previous place. Even when I moved out and moved to the biggest city in my state, there were plenty of houses for $50,000 and under. I ended up renting, though, which is also cheap. My first place for a very short time in the country was $250. Utilities, but no electric a month rent. And when I moved to the big city, I got an apartment for $400 a month rent with all utilities and electricity included. I couldn't imagine ever paying more than $500 a month for housing, whether mortgage or rent. I would never live in a place that charged more than that. Plus, our wages down here are good. Most of us make $15 an hour. Blue-collar work like me or so, and I always have enough money to get high and go clothes shopping whenever I want, and even go to the casino a few times. Story 5. My first girlfriend was this. She had no idea how the real world worked at all. Most of her teen life, she only dated one other guy besides me. She didn't watch TV, knew nothing about what was popular, and every movie she watched was watched by her mom first so she could bleep out the swears ASAP. Her mom was a heavy Seventh-day Adventist. I never heard of this religion, and to this day don't know a single person who is. We live in Georgia. As far as I know, she still does as well. If you follow along with these videos, you may have read my comment how she was my first and only high school girlfriend, and that it blew up. But she wasn't a bad girl. She just didn't know anything because her mom was a control freak. She denied nonstop that we had intimacy, even though I blatantly hinted it several times. Hell, I even once hinted that washed her hair and she loved it. And she said, "What? Did you have her hair in the sink?" Yes, Angela, I put her head in the sink. We were at my house, in my bedroom, almost every other day after school having intimacy. She watched a lot of TV, movies, got into games. She said she didn't know anything about the nerdy, geeky world. I got her into it all. I was proud of myself. She said her parents never let her into it all because they were the "it's evil" parents. I wish I was kidding. Story 6. My fiancé has a friend. For months, she'd subtly drop hints that she has no idea how the real world or finances work by saying some really questionable things regarding budgeting, savings, rent, groceries, and other things that we normal people have to work on daily. It all came out when my fiancé and I were talking about wanting a bigger place, and this friend just says, "Well, why not just go and get a bigger place then?" We laughed thinking she was joking, but she was serious. We told her that the cheapest 2-bedroom apartment would cost easily $2,000 a month at minimum where we live. She then asks if that was a lot, and we both said yes without hesitation. She then went on and explained that she essentially pulled a Trump and asked her extremely rich grandparents for a small loan of a couple $100,000 to buy a house, and boom. That's how she was able to buy a condo in a really lavish part of the city, completely paid off. Her parents, also extremely rich, pay for her utilities as well, so she doesn't have to worry about electricity, water, garbage, etc. Oh, and she doesn't understand the difference between renting a place and buying a place. That explained everything because we had no idea how she was able to do anything despite being a part-time staff member at a small school. We explained to her that we, along with 99% of the human population, don't have that option. I know this idea has been floated around a lot, but I think there should absolutely be a required class added to classes through high school that teach all about how finances work in the real world, including bank accounts, credit cards, mortgages, all that stuff. At least make it an elective for those that really want to know how the real world works. Story 7. Let's see. The former girlfriend who congratulated our waiter at an Outback Steakhouse over getting Subaru to name a car after their restaurant. Or how's about the nurse at a facility I worked in who constantly complained that a friend, also a nurse at another area facility, got paid more. Meanwhile, the friend got no paid sick leave, no paid vacation, no company-provided medical/dental/optical/life insurance at a discounted rate, and was always on call. But she earned $1.50 an hour more, so that's all that mattered. Or maybe the manager I interviewed with back in the early 1990s, who wanted to know why I was carrying a toolkit around with me when I went to open up my day runner to check on the calendar. Even his secretary stared for a moment before explaining to him that it was a scheduling book, not a tool set. Perhaps it could be the friend who came grocery shopping with me and tried peeling the price tags off several items so he could tell the cashier how much to charge for them so we can buy it for less. Or how's about the patient who insisted on always putting off actually signing his admissions contract because he thought that meant he wouldn't have to pay for 3 weeks of part-time, overtime, meds, and room and board. And those are just the ones that popped into my head first. Ugh.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 8. I'm a really nice person, despite my outbursts. At times, I'm not used to fair competition because I'm usually not allowed to compete. I did not know that every inch you have in this world matters, like my first name. Anyway, I befriended people who were in the reject bin, as I'm nice, and I can tell you why they were in the trash. Later in life, they dumped me. Had I not been X's friend all throughout my youth, I probably would have been a perky cheerleader, as I was popular then and gone to college. I would enjoy the freedom of adults. You guys don't know how free you are. Due to my IEP and censored, I was controlled and taught Barney social skills or to the room you go. I end up with the same crowd I always do thanks to the censored. Uh-oh. I've always joked, I want to destroy my own life for once. I didn't even get a turn. I got rid of X too. We do not have to have relations with someone just because we're related to them. What the hell is wrong with people? Story 9. Now I'm scared. I'm scared because I too have no idea how the world works. Even worse, I've never even given a care about how the world works, or stopped to consider that one day this small inconvenience could mess me up. I'm finishing high school now, and I have no idea how to apply for a job, look after myself, and interact with higher-ups in a non-socially awkward way. I know jack about politics and the economy, and I basically have no skills other than being generally good at school. I have zero experience with social media, and despite wanting to be able to draw and or write stuff, I basically know nothing about drawing or writing and have no idea how to even learn. I'm literally a blank slate with no real experience in anything. And worst of all, everyone around me actually thinks I have talent in things I'm horrible at, and that I'll surely end up doing something good with my life. I think this story just goes to show how knowledge can really help lead to confidence. And it again piggybacks to my previous on-screen reaction. Start teaching in class, have an elective about the real world. I think now you just have to start looking on YouTube for any kind of tutorials. You kind of have to do your own research. I guess take the high school lesson of how to study and apply that to the real world in whatever subject you want to get to. I guess that's about the best you can do in that subject. Story 10. I went to a small university where basketball was the main revenue-generating sport. On the first day of a course, the professor said he allowed 2 unexcused absences. It was a pretty difficult class. 2 guys from the basketball team were in the class. They showed up for the first day, the midterm exam, and the final exam. They were MIA for the rest of the term. In a somewhat related story, there was a high-rise dormitory building on campus. The rooms had balconies. A couple players from the basketball team tied a young woman to a chair and hung the chair off one of the upper-story balconies. Campus security spotted her a few hours later. As far as I know, the players were never disciplined, and the university is rumored to have paid the young woman a large sum of money in exchange for her not pressing charges. Like the song says, money makes the world go round. Story 11. I'm an Australian man who went to a pretty popular primary school in my town. One day, our class had a transfer student from California. Let's call her Charlie. We were all in year 4 at the time and hadn't really met anyone our age that wasn't from Australia. And on Anzac Day, a day where we acknowledge World War I and World War II Australian soldiers, she got very confused and asked what was going on when we were making Anzac biscuits or planting poppies. I told her what we were doing and why, and Charlie said, "Why do you even care about them? It's not like they even did anything." That was very disrespectful to everyone, especially this teacher who was sitting next to me, whose dad had perished in World War II. The same girl then moved out of Victoria and moved to New South Wales. Can't help but think she doesn't know how the world just doesn't revolve around her. Story 12. I knew a kid at my school who would always talk bad about people behind their back, even though he was a scrawny, short, annoying brat. He was friends with the jock of the school. He always used this as an example and also said things like, "Well, the jock has my back, so you better think twice." A few months later, we all left the school due to graduation and went to high school, and the jock got annoyed by the brat and pretty much left him. After a while, I heard from a few of my friends that went to the same school as the kid from before, and I found out he got jumped by a group of people who were sick of him because he kept making remarks, and now no one really likes him. Why was the jock friends with the scrawny kid to begin with? Did they start out at a point where the short, scrawny kid wasn't a jerk to the jock? Wasn't a jerk to the jock, jerk to the jock. There, that's something you need to say 5 times fast. But really, what changed? Did the scrawny kid just get an attitude and start lording it over the only friend he had? Kind of a bad move there. Story 13. 2 former friends used to tell my husband how spoiled he is because he has a trust fund, and we were given a very modest trailer house on his family's land rent-free for a year until he finishes trade school. Meanwhile, one works at a warehouse, constantly steals hours by breaking the law of not taking his hour lunch break and constantly goofs off, and the other works a job that pays under the table, and so as a result, he doesn't pay taxes. My husband, on the other hand, while in school, does small labor jobs on his family's farm, while I work at a grocery store to save up for the upcoming rent and groceries. Story 14. My project partner in uni told our professor that I was unwilling to meet up and that lied to her about having to work to get out of meeting with her. I was confused and said I didn't lie. I just had to work, and why she thought I was lying. She had asked me to meet up on a Saturday, so when I asked her, she said, "I mean, who has to work on Saturdays?" The professor literally laughed and said, "Many people." She continued to not be able to wrap her head around that you couldn't just not go to work and that people did anything in life besides going to class and sleeping. Story 15. The $40,000 mortgage one. Probably thought she was almost paid off for the exact same mistake this video made. $40K for 27 years doesn't mean your mortgage will be $150 to $175 a month. Had a house that cost me like $60K. My mortgage for 30 years was like $900 to $1,000 a month. Yes, paying off the actual mortgage was cheap, but it included property tax, around $7,000 to $8,000 a year, plus insurance. She probably did the same thing, so if she took out a $45,000 mortgage, paid $1,000 a month for 3 years, that's $36K. She didn't realize that only a couple thousand went to paying it off. Story 16. The worst for me was hearing, "Externalized display of negative emotions are healing." In particular, This person was referring to cutting, better known as self-mutilation. This person believed that doing this would make people take notice and pull you to the side and ask what the problem is. That's not what happens. Speaking from first and second-hand experience, as well as listening to a hell of a lot of people, all this does is give one a reputation for being emo. Nobody outside the mental health profession gives a care about this. It's worth pointing out that this came from a mental health professional with over 20 years of experience. Story 17. Constantly dealing with this with my daughter's 5th grade teacher. For context, we have a small-scale farm. Her teacher doesn't understand animals at all. For instance, she assigned an article about people with a fear of ducks by Mark Wiener, where the article claimed that ducks were afraid of squares. An adult would read this and understand it's a bit tongue-in-cheek and shouldn't be taken as truth. My daughter's teacher didn't understand this and proceeded to fail my daughter on the written assignment based on the article because the kid pointed it out as being untrue because of the fact that we raised ducks. Story 18. What is my "this person has no idea how the real world works" moment? Every student who's ever attended my high school. Days after dropping out of that cesspool, I realized how truly messed up that place was. And that only became more evident as the years passed. And I'm not just talking about the students, teachers too. The way everyone talked, acted, and even touched each other would get them locked up for disturbing the public at the very least. What a bloody nightmare. The town surrounding it didn't help the situation. It was every man, woman, and bridge troll for themselves. Story 19. Back in 2019, I too thought I could land a full-time role with a bachelor's degree and no experience. A few years later, early last year, I've come to the realization that contract jobs, term-based, that could lead to a full-time role in the future, are what I should have been looking into. Currently in my 3rd contract, and as someone working on their master's degree, I can say that I have set a target time for me, 2 months to find a full-time role. Otherwise, I return to contracts. Story 20. It's scary what some people don't know at their age and experience. And I say that as someone who should know certain things myself. Admittedly, I have problems which hinder me at times, but I still get the basics of things. And if I don't, I'd rather ask questions than look like a complete idiot. It's also quite shocking what some people don't get taught at an earlier age. You'd think people would be leaving home and school with some knowledge and or awareness of how to live in the world. Story 21. I was a volunteerist on a mission to Tanzania. One fellow traveler, on learning that the traditional lifestyle of the Maasai tribe was to raise cattle and goats, said, "So they're vegetarians, right?" Her reasoning was that they couldn't possibly stand to eat the very animals they had raised themselves. Somehow, she thought that traditional societies don't need to get subsistence out of the very products they generate.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.